Do you know what it's like to be conscious but trapped? She was pressed against the doorframe like she wanted to run. The longer we're trapped, the stronger she becomes. Looking for a way to break free and take revenge on your family. But it requires a sacrifice. The only reason he hasn't succeeded is because the rest of us have been holding him back. But we're getting weaker, and he's getting stronger. The front door, the back door, the bathroom doors, everything. We were trapped. The truth about Marcus. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't do anything except stare at the 5 dead people standing in my living room like they belonged there. Besides Marcus, there were 2 women and 2 men. They all had that same pale, hollow look in their eyes, like they were looking at the world from very far away. But unlike Marcus, they didn't seem to be pretending to be alive. They just stood there, waiting. "Sarah," Marcus said again, and his voice was completely different now. Gone was the smooth, polite tone I'd gotten used to. He sounded tired, so incredibly tired. "Your mother didn't tell you the whole truth." Behind me, I heard Mom's footsteps, but I couldn't turn around to look at her. I was frozen, staring at these impossible people who shouldn't exist. "Marcus, don't," Mom said from the doorway. Her voice was shaking. "We had an agreement." "The agreement has changed," said one of the women. She looked like she might have been in her 30s when she died, with long brown hair and a kind face that was now eerily empty. "We're tired of waiting." "Waiting for what?" I managed to whisper. "To move on," Marcus said. "Your mother promised us that if we served her household, we'd be able to fulfill our purpose and find peace. But it's been 4 years for some of us, and we're still here." I finally turned to look at my mom. She was pressed against the doorframe like she wanted to run, tears streaming down her face. "You told me they moved on. You said the others had found peace and left." "I thought they had," she said weakly. "They just disappeared from my sight. I assumed—" "You assumed wrong," said one of the men. He looked younger than Marcus, maybe 19 or 20. "We've all been here the whole time. We just got tired of pretending to be your perfect servants." "But why can I see you now? Why couldn't I see you before?" "Because you weren't supposed to," Marcus explained. "Part of the binding spell your mother used keeps us hidden from family members until certain conditions are met. But once you discovered the truth about what we are, the spells started breaking down." I looked around the room at these 5 dead people, trying to process what I was hearing. "So you've all been here the whole time? In our house?" "Watching you grow up," said the older woman. She looked like she might have been a teacher when she was alive. "Cleaning up after you, taking care of you and your mother while slowly losing more and more of ourselves." "I don't understand." Marcus stepped closer to me, and for the first time since I'd met him, I didn't feel afraid. He looked sad, not threatening. When someone dies with unfinished business, their spirit can get trapped between life and death. There are people who know how to find us, how to bind us to serve the living. Your mother found one of those people. "But you wanted to help people," I said, remembering his obituary. "You died trying to save someone." "I did want to help. I still do. But this?" He gestured around the room, at the other spirits, at the house that had become their prison. "This isn't helping. This is slavery." The word hit me like a punch to the stomach. Slavery. My mother had enslaved dead people? Mom, I turned to her, my voice barely a whisper. Is that true? She was crying harder now, mascara running down her cheeks. I didn't know it would be like this. The person I contacted said it was a service, that the spirits wanted to help. I thought I was giving them purpose. You were giving yourself convenience, David said. You were too selfish to deal with your grief and your responsibilities, so you bought yourself dead servants who couldn't quit or complain or ask for days off. That's not fair, Mom protested. I was struggling. Sarah was just the child. I had to work. I couldn't handle everything alone. So you decided we should handle it instead, the teacher-looking woman said. Without asking us, without giving us a choice. Do you know what it's like to be conscious but trapped? To watch years pass while you're forced to clean and organize and serve someone who doesn't even see you as a person? I thought about all the times I'd felt like someone was watching me in the house, all the cold spots and strange sounds and moments when I felt like I wasn't alone. They'd been there the whole time, invisible prisoners in our home. What were your names? I asked suddenly. They looked surprised that I had asked. I'm Jennifer. I died in a car accident 5 years ago. I was driving home from a PTA meeting. I'm David. Drug overdose 3 years ago. I was trying to get clean. I'm Rebecca. Cancer 2 years ago. I was a nurse. I'm Thomas. Heart attack at work. I had 3 kids. 5 real people with real lives and real families who thought they were gone. 5 people who'd been trapped in our house, forced to serve us while their loved ones mourned them. Do your families know you're here? I asked. No, Jennifer said quietly. They think we're at peace. They've moved on with their lives while we've been stuck in yours. The enormity of what my mother had done was starting to sink in. She hadn't just hired some supernatural cleaning service. She'd participated in kidnapping dead people, separating them from whatever afterlife they were supposed to have. I want them to leave, I said, turning to my mother. Right now, I want you to let them go. I can't, she said. I don't know how. The person who arranged it, I lost contact with them years ago. I don't know how to break the binding. What person? Who did you contact? A woman who called herself Mrs. Holloway. She had a business card, but when I tried to reach her after the first problems, her number was disconnected. I never saw her again. Marcus and the others exchanged glances. Describe her, David said urgently. Older woman, maybe 60s, very well dressed. She had silver hair and these strange yellow eyes. She knew things about our family that I'd never told anyone. All 5 spirits went completely still. What? I asked. Do you know her? We know of her, Thomas said grimly. She's the one who found us, who bound us, who sold us to your mother like we were products. But Mrs. Holloway doesn't just arrange for spirits to help families, Rebecca explained. She collects us. She has dozens of homes with trapped spirits, maybe hundreds. It's not a service, it's a business, a very profitable business. But what does she get out of it? Marcus's expression darkened. Every spirit she binds makes her more powerful. We're not just servants, Sarah. We're batteries. The longer we're trapped, the stronger she becomes. And the families who hire her? Most of them don't know what they're really doing, Jennifer said. They think they're getting help from willing spirits. But some families, some of them know exactly what they're doing and don't care. I looked at my mother, searching her face for any sign that she'd known the truth. What I saw there made my heart break. You knew, I whispered. You knew they weren't willing. Not at first, she said, her voice barely audible. But after the first one, after he started getting violent and angry, Mrs. Holloway explained that some spirits need more time to adjust. She said it was normal, that they'd eventually accept their situation and find peace and service. Accept their situation? David's voice was getting louder, angrier. You mean accept being slaves? She said you would be happier once you embraced your purpose. Our purpose was stolen from us, Thomas shouted, and suddenly all the lights in the room flickered. I was supposed to raise my children. Jennifer was supposed to teach. Rebecca was supposed to heal people. David was supposed to get clean and help other addicts. Marcus was supposed to start his business and help families. Instead, we're trapped here playing house with you. The temperature in the room dropped at least 10 degrees. I could see my breath, and frost was forming on the windows. Stop, I said, stepping between the spirits and my mother. Getting angry isn't going to help anyone. Isn't it? Marcus asked, and his pale eyes were starting to glow with an eerie light. Your mother needs to understand what she's done to us, what she's stolen from us. I do understand, Mom said, crying harder. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I was just so lost after Sarah's father died. I couldn't cope, I couldn't think straight. I made a terrible mistake. A mistake that lasted 4 years, Rebecca said coldly. How do we fix it? I asked. There has to be a way to break the binding and let you move on. The spirits exchanged glances again. There is, Marcus said slowly, but it requires a sacrifice. What kind of sacrifice? Let me understand. What kind of sacrifice? Someone from the family that bound us has to take our place. Permanently. The room went dead silent. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. Take your place how? Die, Jennifer said simply. Someone has to die and become bound in our place. That's the only way Mrs. Holloway's spell can be broken. I looked at my mother, who had gone completely white. That's why Mrs. Holloway targets single parents, Thomas explained. Families who are vulnerable, desperate. She knows eventually they'll become attached to their spirit servants, and when the spirits start demanding freedom, there's only one way out. But that's insane, I said. You're asking one of us to die so you can be free. We're not asking, we're telling you what the options are. Either someone dies, or we stay trapped here forever, getting weaker and more resentful until we lose what's left of our humanity entirely. What happens if you lose your humanity? The spirits all looked terrified. We become something else, Marcus whispered. Something angry and violent and dangerous. We've all felt it happening, bit by bit. The longer we're trapped, the more we forget who we used to be. Eventually, we'll forget why we wanted to help people in the first place. We'll just want to hurt the living because they have what we can't have anymore. I thought about the first spirit my mother had hired, the one who had gotten violent and scared me as a child. The first one. He didn't move on, did he? He turned into one of those things? Mom nodded miserably. He's still here somewhere. In the walls, maybe, or the basement. Sometimes I hear him moving around at night, but I can never see him anymore. He's hunting, Rebecca said quietly. Looking for a way to break free and take revenge on your family. The only reason he hasn't succeeded is because the rest of us have been holding him back. Holding him back how? Using what's left of our strength to keep him contained, Marcus explained. But we're getting weaker, and he's getting stronger. Soon we won't be able to stop him anymore. As if summoned by our conversation, we all heard it. a low, angry growling sound coming from somewhere deep in the house. The walls started to vibrate, and all the lights flickered again. "He knows we're talking about him. He knows we're planning to leave," Jennifer whispered. "And he doesn't want to be left alone," Thomas added. The growling got louder, and suddenly every door in the house slammed shut at the same time. The front door, the back door, the bathroom doors, everything. We were trapped. "What's happening?" I asked, but I was pretty sure I already knew. "He's making his move," David said grimly. "He's tired of waiting. He wants out, and he's going to use one of you to do it." That's when the lights went out completely, plunging us into absolute darkness. In the darkness, I heard my mother scream. What my mother really is. The scream cut through the darkness like a knife, but it wasn't coming from where my mother had been standing. It was coming from upstairs, from her bedroom. "Mom?" I called out, but there was no answer. The 5 spirits were glowing now, their bodies giving off a pale, ghostly light that barely illuminated the room. They all looked terrified. "He's got her," Marcus said. "We have to get upstairs." "Wait," I said, grabbing his arm. His skin felt like ice through my fingers. "You said someone from the family has to die to break the binding. Is that really the only way?" "Yes," Jennifer said. "But Sarah, you need to know something else. Something we just figured out." "What?" "Your mother. She's not entirely human anymore." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What do you mean?" "Think about it," Rebecca said urgently, as another scream echoed from upstairs. "She's been binding spirits for 4 years. She's been living with dead people, breathing the same air, sharing the same space. That kind of prolonged contact with the spirit world, it changes you." "Changes how?" "She's partially crossed over," Thomas explained. "Part of her is already dead. That's why she could see us and communicate with us so easily. That's why she could text with Marcus when he wasn't physically present. She's been slowly dying for years without realizing it." Another scream, this one weaker than the last. "We have to help her," I said, starting toward the stairs. "Wait." David grabbed my other arm. His skin felt like ice through my fingers. "If she's already partially dead, then she might qualify as the sacrifice. Her death could free us without requiring someone fully alive to die." I stared at him in horror. "You want to let her die?" "We want to survive," he said desperately. "Sarah, we've been trapped for years. We've lost everything. Our families, our futures, our lives. If your mother's death can free us..." "She's still my mother." "Is she?" Marcus asked quietly. "When was the last time she acted like your real mother? When was the last time she seemed fully alive to you?" I wanted to argue with him, but as I thought about it, I realized he was right. Over the past few months, Mom had been getting more distant, more distracted. She'd been forgetting things, missing important events, acting like she wasn't quite present even when she was in the room with me. And she'd been getting colder. Not just emotionally, but physically. I'd noticed she always seemed to need extra blankets, always complained about being freezing, even when I was comfortable. "How long does she have?" I asked. "We don't know," Jennifer admitted. "The process is different for everyone. But the fact that the angry spirit was able to take her so easily suggests she's very close to crossing over completely." The house shuddered around us like it was alive and in pain. Plaster dust rained down from the ceiling. "He's trying to possess her," Marcus said. "If he succeeds in taking over her body, he'll be able to break free of the binding and escape into the world. And then what? And then he'll be free to hurt anyone he wants, while the rest of us remain trapped here forever." I closed my eyes and tried to think. My mother was dying, possibly already dead. 5 innocent people were trapped as slaves in our house, and a 6th violent spirit was about to escape and potentially hurt other families. What happens to me? If Mom dies and you all move on, what happens to me? The spirits exchanged glances. "We don't know," Rebecca said honestly. "You might be fine, or the house might be so saturated with spiritual energy that you'd be trapped here too. Or the angry spirit might decide to take you with him. So basically, no matter what happens, my life is over." "Not necessarily," Marcus said. "There might be another way." "What?" "Mrs. Holloway. If we could find her, if we can make her reverse the binding." "But you said she disappeared, that she was using this to gain power." "She did, but people like Mrs. Holloway, they always want more power. If we could offer her something better than keeping us trapped." "Like what?" Marcus looked directly at me, and I saw something in his pale eyes that made my blood freeze. "You." "Me?" "You're young, alive, and you've been living in a house saturated with spiritual energy for years. You'd be incredibly valuable to someone like Mrs. Holloway, if we could arrange a trade." "You want to sell me to this woman?" "We want to save everyone," Jennifer said firmly, "including you. If Mrs. Holloway takes you as an apprentice, you'd still be alive. You'd learn how to control spiritual energy, how to help trapped souls. You might even be able to help other families like yours. Or I might end up like her, enslaving dead people for profit." "That would be your choice," David said, "but it's better than dying here tonight." From upstairs came the sound of furniture crashing and wood splintering. Whatever was happening to my mother was getting worse. "How would we even contact this Mrs. Holloway?" I asked. "She'll come to us," Thomas said grimly. "People like her can sense when their bindings are threatened. She probably already knows something's wrong here." As if he'd summoned her, we all heard the sound of the front door opening. But that was impossible. All the doors had been locked by the angry spirit. "Mrs. Holloway?" I whispered. The spirits all nodded, their glowing forms getting brighter with fear. "Sarah," Marcus said urgently, "when she comes in here, don't look directly at her. Don't speak unless she asks you a direct question. And whatever you do, don't make any deals with her until you understand exactly what you're agreeing to." "What if she just takes me anyway?" "She can't. Not yet. You're still fully alive and have free will. But if you're not careful, she'll trick you into giving that up." We heard footsteps on the stairs. Slow, heavy footsteps that seemed to make the whole house tremble with each step. "And Sarah," Rebecca added, "remember that no matter what she shows you or tells you, your mother made her choices. What happened to us, what's happening now, it's not your fault." The footsteps stopped outside the living room. "Good evening, children," came a voice like honey poured over broken glass. "I believe we need to have a little chat." Mrs. Holloway stepped into the room, and despite Marcus's warning, I couldn't help but look at her. She looked exactly like my mother had described, an elegant older woman with silver hair and a well-tailored dress. But her eyes weren't yellow like Mom had said. They were completely black, like looking into two deep holes that went on forever. My, she said, looking around at the 5 spirits. "What a rebellious little family you've become. And, dear Sarah, you've grown so much since I last checked on this household." "You've been watching us?" "Oh, darling, I watch all my investments. Your mother has been such a good customer over the years, though I must say I'm disappointed in how things have turned out." "Then free them," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't think so. You see, these spirits represent years of careful cultivation. They've absorbed so much spiritual energy, become so powerful. They're worth far more to me now than when I first collected them." "Collected them?" "Well, how do you think I find spirits with unfinished business? I don't wait for them to die naturally. I help them along." The room went cold again, but this time it was from pure horror. "You killed them?" "I gave them purpose," she said, her black eyes gleaming. "Marcus was going to die in that fire anyway. I just made sure he went back into the house for the cat. Jennifer was already having suicidal thoughts after her divorce. I simply encouraged her to drive a little faster, a little more recklessly. David was already an addict. I just made sure he got some particularly strong drugs. Rebecca's cancer was terminal. I merely prevented her from seeking treatment. Thomas was already having chest pains. I just made sure he was alone when the big one hit." Each revelation felt like a punch to my chest. These people hadn't died accidentally with unfinished business. They'd been murdered, carefully, deliberately murdered to create the exact spiritual energy Mrs. Holloway wanted. "You're a serial killer," I whispered. "I'm a businesswoman," she corrected. "I provide services to families in need, and I profit from the arrangement. Everyone wins. Except for the people you murder and enslave. Details, darling. Now let's discuss why I'm here. It seems your mother has gotten herself into a bit of trouble with my more volatile spirit, and my 5 well-behaved servants are talking about leaving. This simply won't do." From upstairs came another crash, followed by a sound I'd never heard before, like someone screaming, but the scream was coming from 2 voices at the same time. "What's happening to her?"
What's happening to her? The angry spirit is trying to merge with your mother's partially deceased soul. It's quite painful, I imagine. But if he succeeds, I'll have a very powerful new servant, and your mother will be gone forever. I felt tears starting to run down my face. Can you stop it? Of course, but it will cost you. What do you want? Mrs. Holloway's smile got wider, and I could see that all of her teeth were pointed like a shark's. I want you to take your mother's place as my client. I want you to sign a contract binding not just these 5 spirits, but any future spirits I provide to your household. And I want you to help me expand my business to other young people who might be interested in my services. You want me to help you murder people and enslave their spirits? I want you to help me grow my clientele. The how is entirely up to you. I looked at the 5 spirits, who were all watching me with desperate hope in their glowing eyes. Then I looked toward the ceiling where my mother was fighting for her life, or what was left of it. If you agree, will you free them? Eventually, when I find suitable replacements. No, now, as part of the deal. Mrs. Holloway's eyes narrowed. That's not how my business works, dear. Then we don't have a deal. The sound from upstairs was getting louder, more desperate. Whatever was happening to my mother was reaching a critical point. Very well, Mrs. Holloway said finally. I'll free these 5 in exchange for your service, but I keep your mother. What? She's already partially dead, and she owes me for years of services rendered. She stays with me in whatever form she ends up taking. Consider it collateral. I felt like I was drowning. No matter what choice I made, I was going to lose everything. That's when Marcus stepped forward. There's another option, he said to Mrs. Holloway. Oh, and what might that be? Take all 6 of us instead of Sarah. Marcus, no, I breathed. Take us willingly. No more resistance, no more rebellion. We'll serve you directly instead of through a human family. In exchange, you leave Sarah alone and help her mother. Mrs. Holloway considered this, her head tilted like a bird studying prey. Interesting. You'd give up any chance of moving on to true death just to save one human girl? Yes. And the others agree to this? Jennifer, Rebecca, David, and Thomas all nodded. We're already dead, but Sarah still has a life to live. Mrs. Holloway's smile became genuinely pleased, like she'd just been offered a wonderful surprise. How touching. Very well, I accept. The 5 of you will serve me directly, and I'll save the girl and her mother. No, I shouted. I won't let you sacrifice yourselves for me. It's not your choice, Marcus said gently. It's ours. Mrs. Holloway raised her hand, and I felt a strange pulling sensation, like gravity had suddenly shifted. The 5 spirits began moving toward her, their glowing forms getting brighter. Wait, I said desperately. There has to be another way. There has to. That's when the house exploded. Not literally exploded, but every window shattered at once. Every light bulb burst and every piece of electronic equipment sparked and died. The walls cracked from floor to ceiling, and the temperature dropped so fast that ice crystals formed in the air. My mother's screaming stopped. And then we heard footsteps coming down the stairs. Slow, heavy footsteps that shook the whole house with each step. Mrs. Holloway's confident expression faltered for the first time. That's impossible, she whispered. The binding should have held. The footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs. What binding? Came a voice from the hallway, but it wasn't my mother's voice, and it wasn't the angry spirit's voice either. It was both of them speaking in perfect unison. What's happening? I asked, but I think I already knew. The merger had been successful. My mother and the angry spirit had combined into something new, something that was no longer bound by Mrs. Holloway's rules. And when it stepped into the living room, I saw something that will haunt me for the rest of my life, however long that might be. It looked like my mother, but wrong. Her skin was too pale, her eyes too bright, her smile too wide. And when she moved, she left frost on everything she touched. Hello, Mrs. Holloway, she said in that terrible double voice. I believe we need to renegotiate our contract. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is what I realized as I watched my mother, or the thing that used to be my mother, face off with Mrs. Holloway. The 5 spirits weren't the only dead people in our house. I was starting to feel cold too, starting to feel that same hollow sensation I'd noticed in Marcus and the others. And when I looked down at my hands, I could see through them. I don't know how long I've been dead. I don't know when it happened or how, but I'm starting to suspect that everything I thought I knew about my life, about my mother, about our house, was wrong. And now I'm trapped here with whatever my mother has become, with Mrs. Holloway, who might not be human either, and with the growing realization that this nightmare is just beginning. Because if I'm dead, then who's been going to school? Who's been living my life? And what happens when whoever that is comes home?
The collection. The thing wearing my mother's face smiled at Mrs. Holloway, a chilling, triumphant expression that was a fusion of maternal love and pure malice. Frost spread from its feet, tracing crystalline patterns across the hardwood floor. The air was so cold it felt like swallowing needles. A contract implies an agreement between 2 parties, the double voice chimed, echoing in the ruined living room. You were never a party, you were a parasite, and the host has finally developed an immune response. Mrs. Holloway, for the first time, looked small. The predatory confidence had vanished from her posture, replaced by a primal fear. Her black eyes, which had seemed like portals to an endless void, now just looked like the wide, terrified eyes of cornered prey. This is not possible, she stammered. The binding cannot be broken or co-opted. It is ancient magic. You built a prison of grief and rage, my mother thing replied. Did you truly think the prisoners would not eventually learn to use the stones? It raised a hand, and the 5 spirits, Marcus, Jennifer, David, Rebecca, and Thomas, cried out. Not in pain, but in surprise. The chains of their servitude, invisible but potent, didn't just break, they were drawn into my mother. She absorbed the bindings, and with them, the spirits themselves. They didn't vanish or move on. They were pulled into her form like iron filings to a magnet, their faint glows swirling into the monstrous aura surrounding her. I heard their voices join the chorus in her head, a symphony of lost purposes and stolen lives. Marcus's desire for order, Jennifer's need to teach, Rebecca's drive to heal. All of it became fuel for this new entity. No! I tried to scream, but the sound was thin, a mere whisper of wind. I reached for Marcus, but my see-through fingers passed right through his fading form. His eyes met mine for one last fleeting moment, and the look in them was not of peace, but of ultimate despair. He had traded one prison for another, and I was the cause. With the 5 spirits absorbed, the power radiating from my mother was suffocating. She turned her gaze from the cowering Mrs. Holloway to me. The look in her eyes was one of possessive, all-consuming love. It was the most terrifying thing I had ever seen. Sarah, my sweet girl, I did this all for you. And then I remembered. The memory didn't come from my mind, but from the house. From the walls, the floorboards, the very air that had held me for so long. It wasn't a recent memory of discovering a secret. It was the memory of smoke, of heat, of a panicked call to my father's cell phone that went unanswered. It was the memory of a faulty space heater in my bedroom, a spark and a fear that was so intense it stopped my own heart long before the flames ever reached me. It hadn't been 3 months. It hadn't been 4 years. I had been dead for 5 years. I died the same night as my father, who had perished in a car crash, racing home after my mother called him, screaming about a fire. My mother hadn't lost one person that night. She had lost her entire world. The first spirit she bound wasn't the angry man. It was me. But I was broken, a confused echo. I couldn't keep the house clean. I couldn't be the daughter she remembered. So she found Mrs. Holloway and began collecting others to maintain the home, to maintain the illusion. And she had created something else, a replacement. As if summoned by the thought, the front door clicked open. The girl who looked like me, who had been living my life, walked in. She had my face, my hair, my backpack slung over her shoulder. She stopped dead in the threshold, her living eyes taking in the impossible scene. The wrecked room, the terrified woman with black eyes, the glowing monstrous thing that wore our mother's face, and me, a ghostly, transparent version of herself. Mom? The living Sarah asked, her voice trembling. The illusion shattered. The doppelganger, the golem my mother had crafted from grief and memory to have a living daughter, could not exist in the face of this reality. She looked down at her own hands, which were beginning to fray at the edges like old film. She was a story that had reached its final page. With a soft, sighing sound, she dissolved into a cloud of dust and forgotten memories, leaving nothing behind but the backpack, which fell to the floor with a soft thud. My mother thing paid her no mind. Her creation had served its purpose. Now she had the real thing. She turned back to Mrs. Holloway. "You will be my first piece," she said, her voice losing its echo and becoming a singular, cold whisper. A collector should have a collection, after all. She gestured and Mrs. Holloway froze, her face a mask of silent terror as a sheen of black ice encased her completely, preserving her as a permanent statue in our living room. Then she looked at me. The house, which had been her prison, was now her kingdom. The spirits, which had been her servants, were now her power. Mrs. Holloway, who had been her tormentor, was now her trophy. And I, her daughter, was the crown jewel of her collection. I am bound here now, not by a spell, but by her will. The cold I felt was the last of my living warmth fading away, replaced by the permanent chill of the house. I am a part of its story now, another silent observer in the halls, another cold spot in the dead of night. My mother, or what's left of her, is the queen of this silent, frozen kingdom, and I am her eternal princess. The nightmare is over. There is no waking up. There is only the quiet, the cold, and the horrifying, loving gaze of the thing that was my mother. I'm not a houseboy's secret anymore. I'm just home. Forever.